Hi there, I'm Quentin Pearson and welcome to Elevate. We help small teams and companies automate manual processes with low-code tools. We help you integrate your new and existing tools to work more efficiently, save money, and save time. Visit us at elevateam.net. Okay, today we want to have a look at the Integromat DevTool, currently known as make.com. So it should actually be called make.com DevTool. This is a really useful tool where you can see more information about your scenario, things that might not always be clear in the actual canvas itself, some information you might not see. It's normally just easier to go into the dev tool itself rather than clicking on the little bubble at the top of the module and then needing to go into the items, and then it takes long to load if it's a really big payload and so on, and it really just is a lot harder than actually seeing all your data in the dev tool. Being able to click on the module you want to see the information there, maybe even copy it, maybe copying the call, so you can use that within Postman. I think I'll go over that as well. And then let's have a look at all the items. So if we go into make.com itself, we'll see this item. So let's close this so that we can open it together. If you are in your canvas, you already have the extension installed, you can press F12 on your keyboard. And I believe this normally looks like this. I don't really like it. It feels like it's really hard to see all the information and so on. So what I like to do is come to the 3-button menu at the top and then select this one so that it's underneath all your information. So you can still see your entire scenario at the top. Usually it's kind of linear, and if you have routers and so on, it would spread out. But overall, it's much easier for me personally looking at it in this way. So what you do is you come to the top menu and select Integromat. This is where all your information would live. If you don't have the DevTool installed yet, you can come over to the Chrome Web Store and search for Integromat. The DevTool should not be confused with the customizable extension, but rather search for DevTool and you should find the correct one. You can just come in here and there should be an install button where you can install that. So the first thing is the live stream tab. This basically what you can do is if you run your scenario, like run once or there's a live run and so on, you will be able to see all the APIs of all the API calls of each of these modules being made listed over here. So you can click on one of those runs and you should be able to view the request header, the request body, and then the response headers and response body as well. That way you kind of get an overview. So let's say, for example, there was an error. You can look at the response body, maybe see an error code, maybe a specific field within that module that had an error, and you can have a look at that. I want to give an example of that. Let me look for something that we can use for that. What I did is I basically copied a template over from the template gallery within Make itself. This gave me a webhook and a Google Sheets add row module. What we can do is we can just come and create a new webhook and call this whatever we want. I usually want to make this kind of descriptive so that we can know what this is later on, because you'll have a bunch of webhooks eventually within Make, and you really want to be able to identify what it is, especially if you make a lot of tests so that you can know which ones can you delete, which ones should you leave and or in production and so on. So if we have a look at this, we can call this one DevTool demo. That way we know eventually that we can delete this one. This was just temporary. We can save this and then copy the address to clipboard. What I'm then going to do is open Postman, and within Postman I'm going to add that URL to be able to post data. Okay, so that can be done. Then we'd like to create a connection over here as well. Call this test account connection, whatever you'd like to call it, and we can sign in with Google. I went ahead and created a demo sheet. So the webhook is created. I have that in Postman, the Google Sheets, and a row module has been created. I selected the spreadsheet in the sheet itself, and then this is the headers I have. So I believe there should be an extra header. Oh, it just did not save. So once it's saved and we come over, we can press refresh. That should then refresh these rows. So what we can do is say run this module only, go over to Postman and send that request. So you'll see that it receives that information. It's just some dummy data we have over here. And we can then actually map these values from that request made. So sees the phone, we know that it should refresh sometime while we're busy. There we go. Let's open the DevTool again and have a look at Integromat. We can see live run. We can then say run once. If I post that information from Postman, we should be able to see this. So the first one says fetching document. This is basically waiting for that post call to be made, and then it receives that data. The second one is a request made to the Google Sheets API, which then posts some information to then be added to that sheet. So if we open this, we can see that this is the document fetched. And then within this request, we can see some more information. We can see the request headers, the request body that was made. We then have the response headers where we should be able to see some more information, and then the status code as well. This is important to find any errors. Then we have the response bodies. If you'd like to copy information, for example, what the object was that was sent through, and you'd like to use this somewhere else, you can just come over here and copy this information. That's the live run. You can also come and copy the curl command. So let's say, for example, you'd want to make this exact same API call through Postman or something like that. You can copy the curl command, go into Postman itself, and then there's a place where you should be able to import. If you select import, you can paste that curl command, and that should then be input. If you look at the headers, you'll see that within the authorization, there's stars, and that's because Integromat or Make doesn't pass through that authorization or that key you need to make the request. They just replace it with stars so that it's more secure. You can just get your authorization wherever you need it from, whether it's an API key or whatever it is, and then replace those stars with that. And you should be able to just press the send button on Postman, and you should be able to make exactly the same API request as you've made here. That's really useful if you need to do some troubleshooting down the line or run into errors and don't know what the issue is. You can also copy the entire raw data and see everything. So from the headers, response body, request headers, request body, the method, all the information. This is really useful if you'd like to make sense of it. And you can actually search the events by content as well. So let's say, for example, you search for name. This module has that in the request body. All the modules that would have something related to this would then be there. So if you really are looking for specific values within your runs, you can do this here as well. So this is the live stream tab. Let's go over to the Scenario Debugger. Over here, this will be empty if there's no runs that have been made. So if these modules are just there and there's no run data within those modules, this will be empty until you actually run it. You can then open this up, you can see the operation, the cycle in which the operation is, and you can see, for example, in this Google Sheets module, you can see the headers, all that as well. You can then again copy the raw data or copy the call and then see more information. So this is kind of if you have multiple runs that have been made. So if we run this again, this should have still the same modules, but with the new data that has been sent, but the live stream should then contain that new information as well. Also, if you are in the Scenario Debugger and you double click on one of these, you should see it highlighted and open up. So if you want to have a look at this one, it's highlighted and open up. That way, if you know what you're searching for, but you have a really big scenario and you don't want to zoom out, okay, it's zoomed out, scroll, you can't see the names, you have to zoom back in, all that. You can rather just come over here, see all your modules, and then select that. Another thing is this should be on by default, but if it's not, you can come over here, right click and click on show module ID. This is really useful because let's say for example you have exactly the same module with the same name. This is hard to distinguish which one has what information, and that's why I'd always recommend renaming each of your modules to show exactly what they mean. So this wouldn't be webhooks, this would be new contact submitted. This wouldn't be Google Sheets, this would be add new contact submitted. Maybe this is update contact submitted, something like that, but you always know what each module does. But along with that, this module ID can then help distinguish where that information is, and you can see, you can double click on it, highlight it, make your life a lot easier. That's the basic overview of the Scenario Debugger. The next and most important part probably of the entire dev tool is the tools section. Within the tools, there's so many items you can use. Not all of them are used as often. Personally, I don't use most of them. The first one we're going to look at is swap variable. So let's say, for example, there's a mapping you have that you would like to swap out. This name is no longer being used, or this email is no longer being used, and you'd like to replace it with a different value. We can search for a variable to find, and then this would be, in this case, that email variable. So all you can do is just come over, copy this and paste it there, or you can enter the module number itself. And then you'd like something you'd like to replace it with. So in my case, I just want to replace it with name, because this is just an example, it doesn't have to make sense. And we can then choose the module. So in this example, the module number 2, this one, we'd like to replace those. We can click run, and that run is completed. We can open this again. We can see name. If you have any formulas, it's a good thing to go back and just make sure everything still works fine, since these tools can mess up formulas. So what I would suggest is copy your entire scenario and work on that duplicate of the scenario. Just in the case that anything can happen, you always have your original scenario saved. So both of these have email, and we'd like to replace all the cases of that email with a new value. We can come back to swap variable and then enter the variable to find, which is the email, and we want to replace it with the name. In that case, we won't select anything here, we just leave it empty. Run it again, that's done. If we open this one, we can see that that one has been replaced, and the second one has been replaced as well. The next one we want to look at is the copy mapping. So let's say, for example, you had this module and you want to do something similar. So you add another one that's exactly the same. The fields there are the same, but let's say they're empty. And this usually would be some type of list or form or something when you have multiple mappings and you don't want to have a look, okay, load, see what the value is, open this one, load, come back, paste the value. You just want to copy everything that's here to the next module and then make small adjustments. What you could do is come to the copy mapping tool. You can select the source, which in our case would be this module 2, which is indicated by this number 2, and then select the target module, which is module number 3. We can run that. As you remember, we removed all these values. And if you open that, you can see that the mapping is exactly the same as the mapping of this one. So let's say, for example, okay, we see both of these on name now. We'd like to change this one to email, but we don't want to do it again for that one. we can come back to copy mapping, select source, select the target, run. Just like that, this should be updated to the same values as well. So that's copy mapping. Let's look at the next one. The next one we're having a look at is get app metadata. This one is not used often, but in the case you're having issues with either a module that was made by Make themselves, or there was some third party that some other developer has created, and you're having some issues with it. You just don't know what's going on and you don't know how to communicate with it. What you can do is you can come to get app metadata, and then you can select whichever module you're having an issue with, and then run that. You'll see you get the name, the label, some keywords, and then especially the version, which might be important to the developer. You can just share this information with the developer and they'll be able to more easily help you. Next on our list is focus module. So you have a really large scenario and you know that you're looking for module 58, but you don't want to spend all the time to search through for that module 58. What you can do is come over to focus module, select the module number. So if you run this, you should see it highlighted and it's already open for you to do whatever you need to do. Similar to the previous one, we have focus module by mapping. Over here, find modules by mapping. You can come in and find either a keyword or maybe a mapping that you've used. So let's say we're searching for this name variable. So let's say, for example, you only want to search through the values. You can keep this checked, or if you uncheck it, it will use the keys of the items as well. So for example, name, email or phone, or otherwise you can search for the actual values of those keys, which would be test user or email@test.com, something like that. So let's see what we get. Over here we can see the module numbers that contain that variable. Module number 3 and module number 2 then contain those values. And along with that, you can then use focus a module. So you've seen that 3 and 2 have that. So now you want to see module 2 highlighted. Click that, it's open and it's focused. Something that might not happen as often, but would definitely happen in some cases, especially if you don't concentrate on what you're doing, is you might see that over here you have your test account connection, but in the one you copied over, it has a different connection altogether. What you'd like to do in that case is come to swap connection, choose the source module, whichever account it is you'd like to use. So in this case, we want to use our original connection we've made with this test account connection, and we then want to select that. And the target module we want is number 3. So if we run that, that should continue. We can have a look. This one still has test account connection, and then the next one should have exactly the same connection as well, and everything is still mapped. So I can see some cases where this can be really useful, especially if you didn't focus when selecting the account, and they maybe even have the same sheet shared with each other as well. The next item in our list is probably the most useful in my opinion. This is the tool I've used most whenever using this dev tool. Is, let's say you have some condition within the data you receive. If the name contains a certain value, you'd like it to go to sheet A, but if it does not, or it contains a different value, it needs to go to sheet B. And then in this case, you can see we already have a filter set up with a few conditions, and you really don't want to go in, scroll, find the condition, add the value, scroll, find the value, add the condition, add the value it should equal to, all that. It's just too much effort. So we have the module IDs here that we can have a look at, and we can remember that a filter is always connected to the left of a module. If we were to unlink this and move this over to something different completely, we unlink that and we move it all the way to this one. You can see the filter is still there. Obviously, we don't want that. So let's see how we can make this happen. We want it to go from module 3 to module 5. We can say copy filter. The source module would be module 3 and the target module would be module 5. And then if we run this, we should be able to see that the entire folder is exactly the same, what the label is copied over. So in this case, we just come and update this. So add to sheet B, and then maybe change whatever we need to change. Say okay, and there we go. Thanks so much for watching the video. If it helped you out at all, please consider subscribing or contacting us on elevateteam.net so that we can look into your own use case and possibly create custom solutions to make your life just a little easier.